Welcome to my show. Welcome to my channel. We're going to touch base on some stuff here. This is a level of initiation. This is, people talking about ascension, and really a lot of people are confused about the situation that's taking place. We're going to try and we're going to pull it into the Christed energy. We'll pull it into the spiritual truth of people, Jesus and stuff. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's first and foremost, people, when it comes to religion and when it comes to Jesus and it comes to the situation 2,000 years ago, first and foremost, it's a hijack, which everybody knows, because religion doesn't have a culture. Religion doesn't have a culture to connect to the people. It's like, the Africans and, them being all tribal, Native American, back before their destruction, and then worshiping their own higher frequency God, and, and Mother Earth and stuff. And then, a situation happened and they introduce someone to the people, and they say, this is your new God. You need to worship this guy. It's a spiritual misunderstanding, and it's confusing because people were told to worship somebody who was killed 2,000 years ago, and then there's going across the board in all tribes and all original tribes. People knew back then internally who the Christ was. They knew, doesn't matter what tribe you were from. It's the sun. It's the higher realms. It's the Christed energy. It's the sun. It's the moon. It's the platinum ray. It's the perfect balance of your DNA within the rainbow prophecy of we're returning back to heaven on earth. A lot, the spiritual side of stuff has been corrupted across the board, and nobody knows because, it doesn't matter what someone says, what someone talks about within ancient history, because everything is an opinion and everything has been corrupted when it comes to the spiritual teachings. And so when they talk about Jesus having teachings, and of course he did. So did the others, and that's the part of Moses and Buddha and all these others from other timelines. You get into Native American. There's the higher ones that they talk about, the biblical ones that they talk about, and everything out of Mesopotamia and Samaria, and all this Babylon and all this stuff from those timelines, but reflecting them into this now moment and Native American traditions and Mayan traditions, it's difficult to comprehend and cross-reference, and that goes along with the Jesus and truly the Christed energy of transformation and understanding within the now moment that all of these timelines have merged into one. And that's the part of ancient history repeating itself, where no one's really able to understand the frequencies that are playing out today due to their consciousness and them being on the lower realms within the beast. And this is the fall. This is all of those fallen realms coming together as one so they can be purged. And that's people being falling out of time and not understanding Mayans calendar and how the rainbow stands still. They talk on the living rainbow within internally. but you can't access it unless you come into the stillness of Mother Earth and Father Sky, and returning back and understanding that you want the native road. We need to return back to the original walk of life, and that's of doing things to return back to Mother Earth. And it's difficult in this timeline because people want to be separate from this reality. Okay, but a lot of people, they will search out Jesus, they'll search out Christ, a higher frequency. But the religion, you know, just like they did in Native American times, um, they come, they kill everybody, and then they give you a god, a false idol, false god. That's the part of what you're speaking, what they're speaking, what you're comprehending. You don't understand because you don't understand ancient history, the frequencies of what took place 2,000 years ago. That's the part that no one can understand. And it's not even 2,000 years ago, it's every timeline. Every timeline where blood was spilt. That's the reflection of Jesus being hung on the tree of life, not a cross, the tree of life, to purify what was distorted. So, but we're coming into this time now, and there's a lot of stuff within scriptures. You have numerical codes, you have sacred geometry, you have stuff, but people read before they can comprehend, and so it's pretty much understanding energy. It's understanding the love frequency. It's understanding higher energies, because we are transitioning from the lower realms into the higher realms. But what does it mean? And that's the frequency that one must understand, the vibration, higher consciousness. But you can't get into higher consciousness if you don't understand the beings, the invisible world. We've been surrounded by demons. We've been on a lower consciousness. Mother Earth was on a lower consciousness. The feminine were sacrificed, as people know in the Nordic times. The over-masculinity killed the feminine, attempting to kill creation. But we didn't know. The medieval times have always been here, and they've just been underground. And we've humanity moving into the AI world, where the fallen ones have been placed, what's left of them. But staying into the religious stuff, that's the part of hijacking, and the Vatican and all these ones over the generations have hijacked and stolen indigenous scriptures and indigenous wisdom, maps, and all kinds of stuff to keep away from the people. But when it comes to these fallen ones, and when it comes to these fake Jews, and it comes to this Islamic order, and even ones who hide behind Christianity, and how they talk about building the temple, you got to have sacred geometry, you got to have numerical codes, you got to be a Mason, you got to have the truth. And that's one part where people are confused within and without, as above so below world, of these past timelines within the Hermetic codes and the transmutation of the rainbow flames from the first seven into another state of being. But the being so condensed in such a small being condensed in a box is where humanity was. Um, and see, a lot of people, we get into the cube. People talk about sacred geometry. When you get into the Middle East and you look at these ones in Israel who put the black cube on their forehead, the cube of Saturn. And then you go ahead and you look over into, I think it's Mecca, where they have the big black cube where they all stick their head into a hole to look into the void. Um, this is the lowest of the lowest realms. Um, and, they've been. You can go into Egypt, you can talk about the books that came out of there. But a lot of people don't know, and that's that whole aspect. Jews don't even know, Christians don't even know. Everything's just on the surface of, what is a Jew, what is a Christian. People forced into being Christians at young age through the church, Catholic Church and stuff. How can you have so many branches of Christianity, and so, you got different branches of being a Jew, and same thing with the Muslims, but it's, I grew up, there's a difference between a black Muslim, old school black Muslim, and these radicals today, and that's the part, the radicals, that have been spread out around the world to create havoc. And, it's the same thing as ancient history. It's the same thing as when they came for the temple. That's the whole thing. You look at it in the movies, you look at it in Troy, you look at 300, you look at certain movies that reflect ancient history, but people can't see it into today's timeline, even if they see what has been going on these past couple of years with sending people around the world to create havoc and invade other lands with men who are of a demonic sense to bring the same frequency as they did before. And so that's the part of, after Jesus died, what was the frequency that came? Because the chaos came, the rage came, and they lost access to certain things. So losing access to heaven, shutting the door, kicking the fallen ones out of heaven. So what is it with the ones attempting to get back into heaven? Everything is just words, unless you're in the frequency of it. Everything is just words, but the situation out there is nothing to be taken lightly. A lot of people isolate themselves, and they, the whole thing of not being able to comprehend it, it's a shock of what people see, but people have been so brainwashed and manipulated into the lower realms that they're spiritually numb to be able to comprehend. It's the same thing with Jesus. They're spiritually numb to be able to comprehend. Like, you have pre-Christian churches, you have all of this Gaelic and Nordic, Druidic, pre-Christian stuff, but they, as the religion rose up, they didn't have any teachings of their own, so they had to steal teachings. That's the problem. You don't have any DNA, you can't create. You don't have any water, you can't create. You talk about the fallen fire or the stolen fire. You can't create with just fire. You got to have water. See? So you have to bring it back down into the elementals, and so within scriptures and within creation, returning back to the 0 point of creation, Rainbow Prophecy, Turtle Island, and fixing Maya's calendar, and reconnecting, dismantling the dream spell. It's a huge thing because it's all within the numerical codes and the sacred geometry of rebuilding the tree of life. But that's, it takes initiation. People have to come through the fall, the fall of the sacrificed blood of Christ. That's the purity. That's purifying oneself. It's just a frequency. That's the whole thing. And people don't understand of how rainbows are created. And it goes into so many different layers of misunderstanding, because when people look at the rainbow prophecy, they look at Native American. You look at your chakras, you look at India and Hindu and Buddha. You're looking at Christ, you're looking at biblical times, Nordic times, and there's Mayan times, and there's so many different timelines. But that's the part where they all evolve around one. But everything is within the symbols that people have lost. So when you're looking at the East, you're looking at what's going on in Iran. People don't understand because it's the hijacking of the three religions, and we are waiting for the AC to rise, because that's the one who will bring the peace, and the one who brings the peace is the false light, but that's what people in that realm, in the fallen realm, need to experience and bypass what they are doing out there today, as one who has soul experience can see that within America they are attempting to turn the tide to bring the Americans back into supporting Israel in a if you're Christian, you need to support Israel. You need to support Israel. You got to support the Jews. But people don't understand the spiritual manipulation, of what this is, because it's attempted hijack of the people, and it's making the people feel bad for those people, when it's those people, the false Jews, the fake light, false idol, who wish to control the people through the AC, and the false light teachings. All three teachings are, it's this one person needs to be a teacher in all three religions to bring in the the AC. And so the way that it works is, that they hijack people spiritually, but in this timeline you have the AI and everything like that. But to bring everyone into the false light, they need to overlap. It's kind of like what they did before, where they came to America and they chased people, and told people how to think and how to be, so forth. So in this timeline, it's either returning back to Mother Earth, finding the true Christ within, or taking the outer spiritual journey and being manipulated by the church once again. Because a lot of people think that Trump is the AC. That's the problem. People, the spirit is completely gone within the people, and that's that's the truth. The spirit is completely gone within the people, and they can't understand their dreams, nightmares, visions. They wouldn't know if any of these prophets were even walking today. That's the thing. You do have a lot of people speaking prophecies and stuff, but that's mainly in the Bible, and that's everything from ancient history, only in the biblical sense. They only look at Jesus in the biblical sense. It does have layers of spiritual truth, but you have to be able to pull Jesus out of religion, Christ out of religion, to understand. You take back your power by not allowing them to tell you what to think and what to believe, you know. In my experience, I understand a lot of people don't want to be marked religious by saying the word Jesus. I've noticed that over my years. It's not about being religious. It's not about, you say the word Jesus Christ and so forth, but it's about returning back to Mother Earth. And that's where you'll find Jesus. That's where you'll find Christ. That's where you find the rainbow. That's where you find the inner journey back to the lotus. So you want to find Christ, you want to go through the initiation. It's not outside. Faith is a frequency. Belief is a frequency. Love is a frequency. Hate, anger, doubt, worry, murder, sacrifice, it's all out there. That's the lower frequency. It's transmuting these lower energies and coming back in to your oneness and one love and and all this stuff, because it's been corrupted. The only thing that wasn't corrupted was one love, Jah, in the music in that form. But that's also the part where you're going to be Christian, you got to listen to Christian rock music. So there's a cutoff point also within the music of people's beliefs, like cultures and becoming something else. You can't become something else when you're listening to old rock music or Grateful Dead and everything that has come through from the past timeline. You can transmute it, you can listen to some of it, but in the collective of certain bands of what we grew up in, doesn't have the frequency anymore. We're not in the mosh pit anymore, because who created the mosh pit? That's the whole thing. And then who are the ones who took the black people away from their culture and manipulated their culture? So and so then you have all these shades of people, different types of religions, and saying that, oh, Jesus is in this book and Jesus is in that book, and we're rewriting books, and we got to leave some books out so the public don't know. There's a lot of stuff that has been hidden from the people, and a lot of people don't. You have the 2012 awakening. That's Reiki is a stepping stone, and a lot of people over these years of ascension really haven't been able to advance spiritually due to nobody having the correct path, the inner journey, because it's a piggyback on Buddha. That's the people attempting to get to the Christ consciousness, but they don't understand the other half. They don't understand the symbolism of every timeline, of what's in the water, what's in the Akashic records of all of these past timelines. That's the thing of like, where are we going spiritually? What's taking place today? We are shifting. We've come through timelines. Not everybody has. Mother Earth has. The Pleiadians, the Divine Mother, Sacred Water. All the elements have been reclaimed. The symbols have been returned. But where does one begin if they want to move into a different frequency? Move into the dragon realms, become a earth unicorn, because that's part of the rainbow prophecy. But people don't ask questions. People think that they know it all. They say that the energy is rising, but they don't know what dimension, what timeline, what's going on with the Mayan calendar, because they're still in the dream spell. This is why there's rattling going on, shaking going on, vibrations, kundalini's rising, the world serpent is rising. I can go on and on. It's a within and without, as above, so below, and in the Hermetic lab. You understand? Because people talk on the emerald flame, heart chakra. They don't understand how it's connected to Hermes and Osiris and the Green Man and what it really reflects. Because people are only stuck in their 7 chakras and they don't know where the gate is to enter into the trifold, the 3 sevens, the numerical codes that connect the sacred geometry, to connect the diamonds, to connect the rainbow. Start off at ground zero, 0 point. But that's going within, coming into the center, finding the Christ. Because what does it mean to be Christed in this timeline? You gotta fall spiritually. That's part of the scriptures. We're in the Revelations. These are the end days. Millions of people have died, but Americans still sit here with their crystal up their ass, thinking that they're light workers. You want to be enlightened. There's more to come.